The sperm whale is a gentle giant. Seriously, that's what the documentary said. Gentle. The animal that dives 2 kilometers into absolute darkness and fires 230 decibel sonic blasts from its forehead to rupture the internal organs of giant squid. Gentle. Let that number land for a second. 230 decibels. A jet engine at full thrust, measured from 1 meter away, produces about 150. A 12-gauge shotgun, 165. The threshold of pain for the human ear is 125. At 185 decibels, the pressure wave alone can cause lethal pulmonary damage, not to your ears, to your lungs. The sperm whale produces 230. And it does it underwater, where sound travels 4.5 times faster than in air and carries energy over distances that would be impossible on land. This is not communication. This is a weapon. The question that hung over cetology for most of the 20th century was simple. How does a whale hunt in the dark? Sperm whales dive to depths where sunlight hasn't reached since the ocean formed. 2,000 meters, sometimes deeper. The pressure at that depth is roughly 200 atmospheres, enough to crush a submarine not specifically designed for it. There is no light. There is no vision. And yet the sperm whale finds, tracks, and catches giant squid. Animals that are fast, intelligent, and desperate, with a success rate that suggests it's not even particularly difficult. But before we get to the weapon, consider what it takes just to arrive at the battlefield. The whale inhales once at the surface, 1 breath. Then it descends, head first, flukes rising, body vertical, into water that gets colder, darker, and heavier with every meter. Its heart rate drops from about 30 beats per minute to as low as 4. Blood flow redirects away from the extremities and into the brain and the spermaceti organ, the 2 systems that matter. The lungs collapse entirely below about 100 meters. This is by design. Collapsed lungs can't absorb nitrogen under pressure, which means the whale doesn't get the bends. The rib cage is flexible. It bends inward, absorbing the compression. The whale falls through 200 atmospheres of pressure with broken ribs that heal every time it surfaces. For 90 minutes. On 1 breath. And when it reaches the bottom, it doesn't rest. It hunts. The answer lives in the whale's forehead, and the forehead is where things get strange. A sperm whale's head makes up roughly 1/3 of its total body length. In a large male, that's 5 to 6 meters of head. Inside that head is the largest nose in the history of life on Earth. But it's not for smelling. It's an acoustic apparatus. The spermaceti organ sits at the top, a massive reservoir of waxy liquid, sometimes weighing over 2 tons. Below it, a second oil-filled structure called the junk. Between them, at the very front of the skull, a pair of valve-like structures that researchers, with characteristic scientific dignity, named the monkey lips. The mechanism works like this. The monkey lips snap shut, producing a click, a sharp, broadband pulse of sound. That pulse travels backward through the spermaceti organ, bounces off a concave air sac at the back of the skull, and is reflected forward through the junk, which acts as an acoustic lens. The junk shapes the sound into a focused beam, like a flashlight, but made of pressure. The whale aims this beam by adjusting the shape of the spermaceti organ, changing the density of the wax inside it, and rotating its head. 1 click, 1 beam, 1 target. At 2,000 meters, in total darkness, with a precision that we didn't believe was possible until we recorded it. Kenneth Norris, 1983, marine biologist, University of California, Santa Cruz. He was the first to formally propose what everyone had been quietly wondering. The sperm whale doesn't just use sound to find prey, it uses sound to stun prey. The hypothesis was straightforward. At sufficient intensity, focused acoustic energy could disorient, paralyze, or outright kill soft-bodied animals like squid. Norris couldn't prove it at the time. The technology didn't exist. But the math worked, and every piece of evidence since then has pointed in the same direction. Here's what the math says. A 230 decibel click focused into a narrow beam delivers a pressure pulse of approximately 1,500 newtons per square meter at the point of contact. For a squid's mantle, which is essentially a tube of muscle with no skeleton, that's equivalent to being hit by a hydraulic press. The tissues don't cut or tear, they cavitate.
Fibers stay intact.
The pressure wave creates microscopic vacuum bubbles in the tissue, and when those bubbles collapse, they release a secondary shock wave that destroys cells from the inside. This is the same mechanism that damages ship propellers. The whale is doing it to a living animal. I watched the sonar recordings from the Azores tagging project for longer than I should have. The pattern is precise. The whale descends, clicking steadily, broad scanning pulses, about 2 per second, mapping the water column. When the echo profile changes, when something solid appears in the dark, the click rate accelerates from 2 per second to 10, to 20, to 40. The whale has locked on. The beam narrows, the intensity increases. And then, in the final moments before contact, the clicks merge into a continuous buzz, a terminal buzz, as researchers call it. The same term radar engineers use, because the mechanism is the same. The whale is running target acquisition at 2,000 meters, in water colder than a refrigerator, on a single breath of air that has to last 90 minutes. The prey has no counterplay. Giant squid are fast. They can jet backward at speeds exceeding 40 kilometers per hour. But sound at that depth travels at 1,500 meters per second. By the time the squid registers the incoming pulse, it has already been hit, multiple times. The whale doesn't chase. It clicks. It listens. It fires again. And when the squid is disoriented, when the cavitation has softened the mantle, when the nervous system is overloaded, the whale moves in. Slowly, mouth open. The lower jaw, lined with conical teeth that fit into sockets in the upper jaw, closes around the squid. No dramatic chase, no thrashing fight, just physics, applied with the patience of something that has been doing this for 20 million years. Think about that from the squid's end. You're a giant squid, 10 meters long, fast, with the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. Dinner plates, evolved specifically to detect the faintest traces of bioluminescence in the deep. You can see almost everything down here. And it doesn't matter, because the thing hunting you doesn't use light. It uses pressure. The first warning is a vibration that passes through your entire body, not heard, felt. Then another, faster. Then a series so rapid they blur into a single tone, and by that point the tissue damage has already started. Your mantle, the muscular tube that is both your body and your only means of propulsion, is losing structural integrity. You fire your jet, you release ink, you flare your arms. None of it matters. The whale is not chasing you. The whale is standing still, 200 meters away, clicking. You were dead before you knew you were being hunted. There's a detail in the anatomy that deserves its own silence. When researchers dissect sperm whale stomachs, they find squid beaks, thousands of them, from hundreds of individual squid, The soft tissue is digested. The chitin beaks remain. Some stomachs contain over 18,000 beaks. Each beak represents one kill, one dive, one 230 decibel blast in the dark. The whale doesn't keep score, but the beaks do. Now here's the part that flips the frame entirely. The spermaceti organ, the acoustic weapon, the thing that makes the whale the apex predator of the deep, is the same organ that humans hunted them for 2 centuries. The sperm whale gets its name from spermaceti, the waxy oil inside the organ that whalers mistook for sperm. They boiled it down for lamp oil and industrial lubricant. The finest candles in 19th century America were made from a substance that evolved to kill squid at 2,000 meters. The whaling industry dismantled the most sophisticated hunting system in evolutionary history because it made good candle wax. If you want a summary of humanity's relationship with the ocean, that's it. There's one more layer. The weapon is only half the system. The other half is the language. Sperm whales communicate using codas, rhythmic patterns of clicks, distinct from the hunting pulses. Different clans use different codas. Caribbean sperm whales click in different patterns than Pacific ones. These patterns are culturally transmitted. Calves learn them from their mothers. The same organ that produces 230 decibel kill shots also produces the closest thing to a dialect that any non-human species has ever demonstrated. I keep thinking about that. The same instrument used for both conversation and warfare. The piano and the gun in the same body. And this is what sat in the literature for decades, mostly ignored. Norris published in 1983. The biosonar community debated politely. The documentary industry kept using the word gentle. It wasn't until the early 2000s, when digital acoustic tags could be attached to diving whales, that the full picture emerged. The scanning clicks, the acceleration, the terminal buzz, the kill geometry. The whale had been doing this the entire time. We just hadn't been listening. There is a zone in every ocean, below the photic layer, below the thermocline, in the permanent dark that begins around 1,000 meters and extends to the HADAL trenches, where the dominant form of predation is acoustic, not visual, not chemical. Sound. The sperm whale is the apex of this system, but it is not alone. Dolphins echolocate. Beaked whales echolocate. Even some species of shrimp produce sounds loud enough to stun small fish. Sound is the language of the deep, and the sperm whale speaks it louder than anything else alive. The octopus solved intelligence without a spine. The sperm whale solved hunting without light. 230 decibels, 2 kilometers down, on a single breath, in absolute darkness, for 20 million years. And right now, somewhere in the North Atlantic, one of them is descending, clicking, listening. And somewhere right now, it's happening again, just further down.